Say, for the sake of argument, there's this guy who's running for president. It's late in the campaign, and one of his chief liabilities as a candidate is that over a dozen women have reported that he sexually assaulted them, among them his ex-wife and a 13-year-old girl. His candidacy depends on convincing enough of the voting public that these accusations are false. But then, shortly before the election, audio leaks of this guy, backstage on TV and unaware his mic was on, not just admitting to, but bragging about kissing and groping women without their consent. So the first question is, how's he gonna spin that? And the answer comes in the form of an internet apology video where he begins with something like, I don't know, I never said I was a perfect person or claimed to be someone that I'm not. At which point, you pause the video like, dude, yes you have. You have done literally both of those things. So you pop on over to Twitter and comment on how this guy's apology opens with two comically untrue statements. And like flies to manure, his supporters show up in your mentions. And they say, that audio is from years ago. What he means is he doesn't speak that way about women anymore. To which you point out, yes he does. He did, like, 2 months ago. And they say, well, his opponent's husband actually does those things. And you reply, those allegations are far less substantiated, and if they're true, the candidate's not responsible for her husband's misconduct, and if they're true, that doesn't make this guy innocent. And they start leaning in on the why do liberals make such a big deal about coarse language, strong women can handle themselves, in real life there are no content warnings, and all you can do is lean back in your seat laughing to yourself. What kind of debate is this even? There's not a single thing your opposition has said that isn't provably false or irrelevant, and they change the subject every 30 seconds. They clearly have no actual position, and are just grasping at straws because they can see they're losing. So you don't really have to pay them any mind. They won't endure. Thing is, they have. Not only does this manner of argument endure, it keeps winning elections. Why? Folks, let me introduce you to one of the most foundational strategies of reactionary rhetoric. Control the conversation. Much of what we discuss in this series will come back to this in one way or another. Now let's be clear, a lot of the alt-right is okay with or even in favor of sexual assault against women, but it's not politically viable to say so. So if their guy is a serial harasser and they want people to vote for him, they have to control that conversation. They have to let people think that a vote for this guy is not a vote for sexual assault. How it works is every one of these bad arguments is a subtle attempt to change the subject. Now, changing the subject mid-debate isn't a remarkable phenomenon. We call that moving the goalposts. And if that's all that was going on, I wouldn't waste your time making a whole video about it because that video already exists. Link in the down there part. Controlling the conversation is a bit more sophisticated. To understand it, we have to look at how the goalposts move and where they get moved to. Regarding how the goalposts move, you must understand this. Bad arguments are not a bug, they're a feature. I mean, what are the positions in this debate? On one side, it's this guy admitted to groping women, and on the other, it was all just locker room talk. And trying to convince people that a guy who said he groped people didn't actually grope people is not a favorable argument for his supporters to have. So they just don't have it. If their position is he didn't really do what he said he did, they've learned never to make that argument. They make the next argument. Because if we were to agree that it was all just locker room talk, the next argument would be, and he doesn't talk that way anymore, or and his opponent's husband actually does those things, or and coarse language has no negative effects on women. The trick is to treat you like you've already agreed to their position, and make claims that treat it as a given. Cognitive scientists would call this presupposing a frame. If you're on whether or not he still speaks that way to women, you've unwittingly agreed that that's what you're talking about. And that's why it benefits the right to insist that language is harmless despite a wealth of contradictory data, because if liberals provide the data, it gets them talking about speech. Bad arguments are bait, because liberals can't resist digging into them. They don't like letting false statements slide, and often they won't even notice if that statement is off topic. So there are few better ways to get Democrats talking about what you want them to talk about than to defend your position badly. Regarding where the goalposts move, let's step back and ask ourselves, what is the purpose of debate? The liberal conception of debate is usually along the lines of Joseph Joubert's adage, the aim of argument or of discussion should not be victory, but progress. You're thinking Plato and Glaucon, or maybe Debate Club. Two sides debate until one side wins, or until a third conclusion is reached together. Either way, the goal of debate is to arrive at the truth. That's not what debate means on the right. There, debate is a chance to perform strength, integrity, and certainty. There, you don't debate until a victor is declared. You debate as long as you can keep eyeballs on you, forever if possible. There, the truth doesn't win because nobody wins, not in any formal way. You may scoff at that, but let's think about it. This is how political debates are structured in the US, where two candidates come in already knowing everything they're going to say, where it's political suicide to concede any point or find any compromise, and where who won is up to the voters. In such a framework, truth and falsity don't exist. All that matters is how much of the audience agrees with you. And if that's your framework, then what's in your best interest is to steer the conversation swiftly and efficiently to something you and your opponent will never agree on, because that gives you the most opportunities to look firm in front of an adversary. The value of turning a conversation about sexual assault into a conversation about sexist language is that the effect of sexist language is a place where the left and the right are fundamentally at odds. This is something Republicans can argue about till the end of time, because the left's understanding of systemic issues does not jive with the right's views on personal responsibility. Yes, of course, if the president spoke this way in the White House, it might be alienating to any woman who works there, but the right sees this as a personal failing on the part of the woman, not a systemic failing on the part of men. Sure, he shouldn't have said that, but really, she needs to lean in. And all the articles, all the data, all the reports that say that's not how this works in practice, they are useless in the framework of a performative Twitter argument or a 1-hour TV debate. A proper understanding of institutional sexism just takes longer than that. Now, I should stress, because it will be true for most of these videos, this isn't a master plan cooked up by some shadowy alt-right cabal. Most of the people who argue in this fashion, not all, but most, are simply doing what works without necessarily knowing why it works. It's picked up through observation or by trial and error. And it's not exclusive to the right. Everybody does this sometimes. It's just that the right has made it core to their entire platform. Anyway, why would anyone use this framework? Well, if your opposition has facts on their side, then you need a framework where facts aren't important. But more broadly, if the goal is to win over the public, then the public does respond to honesty, but they also respond to moral certainty. And the right tends to sell certainty better than the left sells truth. This is what they're good at. This suits their worldview. They speak of a universe where opposing sides never agree because agreement is impossible. And since agreement is impossible, you never have to compromise. And since politics isn't about compromise, it's just about outnumbering your competition by any means necessary and obstructing them at every turn when they outnumber you. There is comfort in the idea that people are just fundamentally different and that they owe each other nothing. And if victory is defined by holding your own, then the Democrats' desire for compromise is a weakness that can be exploited. On a gut level, the right knows what debate means on the left, knows that the left wants to meet in the middle. So all they have to do is bait the left into having a discussion on their terms, and then keep insisting that they should find common ground. You could work with us if you'd only try a little harder. Because the rules of that debate, where you concede points and look for compromise, in their world, make the left look weak. And as long as the right controls the terms of debate, conciliatory loses. That's how they control the conversation, move the entire debate to their framework using a bad argument as the worm on a hook. Now, understanding this, you may find yourself tempted to engage in that debate because, knowing the rules, you think you can dig in your heels, put on a better show, win over more of the audience. But the one piece of advice I have for you is never take the bait. Don't let them turn you away from the real subject. This guy assaulted women, and that has nothing to do with speech. Theirs is not a game that can be won by progressives. Even if you ruined them for some ignorant comment on the First Amendment, you'd only be legitimizing their rules, and those rules do not lead to a functional society. They are based on the idea that differing types of people can't work together. So one just has to beat out all the others. You can't expect to run on those principles and not get flooded with Nazis, homophobes, and handsy rapists. So get it out of your head that you can win in a debate with the far right, that you can beat them at their own game. If you find yourself playing their game, you've already lost.